So then one soul disappears. We know that when body is finished, and along with the body, the name, fame, and activities, everything will go off. So their kingdom, Panda's kingdom was beautiful just because of the impressions of the feet of the Krishna, or impressions of the Krishna.
Correct.
Yeah. Then she also said that on all powers to the demigods also basically given by the Krishna himself only. He is the administrator of the entire creation. So we need to cut off our family affection to proceed towards the devotional service. Then the example, like the Ganges flows towards the sea continuously.
Excellent.
Our affection also need to pass towards Krishna without any hindrance.
Excellent. Excellent.
And at the last, we understood that the entire proprietor of this transcendental abode is basically the Krishna himself.
Fantastic. So beautifully summarized. It's excellent. Anybody would like to add any few other points? Sushil Prabhu? Sushil Prabhuji, you're there?
Yeah. Prabhu, in 39 verse, though Mr. Rao has covered that we discussed that there were 8 marks on the left feet of Krishna and 9 marks on the right feet of Krishna, and all these marks were very auspicious. And Kunti was feeling that once Krishna leaves the place, the Hastinapur will become inauspicious will not remain that auspicious, because these foot marks will not be there.
Super. Excellent. Rakesh Prabhu, any point would you like to add? Anybody else would you like to add any point? Subbu, Prabhu, would you like to add?
Sure, Prabhuji. There was one point which struck me was that, Kunti says that it's good to have troubles.
Yeah.
Because only during troubles, you would actually think of the Lord more.
Yes.
And that becomes probably a habit. So I think having troubles is not a bad thing. That is something struck me.
Excellent. Excellent. And so this is that verse which actually stands apart all the verses. And one of the reasons why Bhagavad Puran is called as Amala Puran is it does not entice the reader with some material benefits, and which we have spoken previously. Right? These material benefits all are at the level of the body, not at the level of the soul, and which is what Krishna rejects in Bhagavad Gita in the 42nd and 43rd verse of the 2nd chapter. So he leaves the plane of the body in the first few verses of the 2nd chapter itself. So the complete remaining Bhagavad Gita is only at the level of the soul. And Bhagavatam starts from where Bhagavad Gita leaves. And Bhagavatam that's why doesn't talk anything about bodily benefits and its complete discussion is revolved around the soul. And when these calamities happen, they are not at the level of the soul, they are always at the level of the body. But because a person may be attached to his body and anything related to the body, he will continuously pray to Krishna. And that's why she is saying that although Kunti was a very pure top level devotee, she was representing people like us, and these teachings are for people like us. So she is saying that because people will have attachment to body and their material opulences, they will remember you. So these calamities, as you very rightly said, these calamities are actually good because they help us remember the Lord. Fantastic. And in the next verse, she immediately mentions also that you can be easily approached only by those who are materially exhausted. So to be not very materially opulent, in a way, is a boon towards our devotional service. Because if one is materially opulent, there is a good chance that he may not need Krishna's help. So remembering Krishna will come even later. First, because we are attached materially, the need arises first, and then the run to Krishna happens later. So she is saying that if I am materially exhausted, I would actually love, because I would be able to remember you continuously. Excellent. Thank you. Almost summarized the complete stuff. So we will move on now. So we finished off Kunti Stuti in the last class. So we didn't take the class last week, 20th August, because of Janmashtami. And I believe a few of you were able to come. In case not, there is a YouTube recording as well. You can watch that as well. And if not, then at least try to come to such programs. They are like medicine for our material current situation. So every week we go to Sunday program and we recharge our battery, which helps us continue for the next week. And again, when the battery starts going down, we again go to Sunday program to recharge it. So these festivals act like a bigger recharge, which help us go on for even a longer time. So let's look at verse number 44. Hare Krishna. So I could see Uddhav Krishna Prabhu has also joined. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, welcome. Thank you for joining. So Uddhav Krishna Prabhu is a very senior devotee. If you remember, he has come in our Wednesday Bhagavad Gita class also a few times. And we will be able to hear from him as well going forward. So thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you for joining.
Hare Krishna to everyone.
Hare Krishna. So we'll chant the verse. Suta Uvacha Pruthayetham Kalapapadai Parinutakhilodayaha Mandam Jahasa Vaikuntho Mohayanniva Mayaya. Translation. Anybody would like to read?
Sure, Prabhuji. Sutta Goswami said, the Lord, thus hearing the prayers of Kunti Devi, composed in choice words for his glorification, mildly smiled. That smile was enchanting as his mystic power. Purport. Anything that is enchanting in the world is said to be a representation of the Lord. The conditioned souls who are engaged in trying to lord it over the material world are also enchanted by his mystic powers, but his devotees are enchanted in a different way by the glories of the Lord, and his merciful blessings are upon them. His energy is displayed in different ways, as electrical energy works in manifold capacities. Srimati Kunti Devi was Srimati Kunti Devi has prayed to the Lord just to enunciate a fragment of his glories. All his devotees worship him in that way by chosen words, and therefore the Lord is known as Uttama Sloka. No amount of chosen words is sufficient to enumerate the Lord's glory, and yet he is satisfied by such prayers as a father is satisfied even by the broken linguistic attempts of the growing child. The word Maya is used both in the sense of delusion and mercy. Herein, the word Maya is used in the sense of the Lord's mercy upon Kunti Devi.
Okay. Thank you so much. So anything that is enchanting in the world is said to be a representation of the Lord. Do you remember any verse in Bhagavad Gita which talks about this? Anybody? In chapter 10, Vibhuti Yoga. यद्यद् विभूतिमत्सत्वं श्रीमदुर्जितम् एव वा तत्तदेवावगच्छत्वं मम तेजोंश संभवम्. Know that all opulent, beautiful and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Anything that is in this world which has some positive value is actually coming from Krishna. And for that matter, even the negative value also comes from Krishna only, because he is the controller from a destruction perspective also. So now, why is that so? From a Vibhuti Yoga perspective, if you look at it, Krishna is highlighting there that the opulences that he possesses, nobody else has even a fraction of it. And that is why he is highlighting that he is of so and so in a particular category. Among the birds, he is the eagle. Among the trees, he is the banyan tree. Among the mantras, he is the chanting. Among the mountains, he is the Meru mountain. So many things. So every category he takes and he says that imagine the best in a particular category, that is me. And he is highlighting this for us to ensure that we understand that the Lord is not somebody ordinary and we can just approach the Lord just for the sake of our order supplying activities and apna kaam khatam ho gaya, then bhul jao Lord ko. He is not that. He is not that level. For example, a child, when he feels hungry, he remembers his mother. But the moment the food goes in the stomach and energy is received, then the child forgets the mother. Okay, but that relationship is after a while, when the child again becomes hungry, he again remembers the mother. So he cannot afford to permanently forget the mother. However, in today's world, what we see is we have a tendency to remember the Lord only when there is a need. And sometimes we believe that our capability is sufficient enough for us to address the current situation. Lord की कोई जरूरत नहीं है. The scientists say that the God is dead. Yeah, God ने world बनाया, self-functioning world बना दिया, and now he is dead. Yeah, so this is that foolish level interpretation of the opulence or the status of God. So because we think that our ego and our ability is sufficient for us to take care of anything and everything that is required from a material life perspective, which is actually a kind of a transformation of our ego, or basically our ego helps us think that way. So we are conditioned by such thinking, and we think that we can take care of everything. We don't need the Lord. And obviously, then the Lord doesn't come in front of us. He doesn't give us his darshan. He doesn't give us his mercy as well. But the devotees are a different breed altogether. The devotees are attracted not to the material benefits that are received from the Lord, but only towards the glories of the Lord. They are only attracted to the Lord himself and anything and everything which is related to the Lord. So we are attracted here to Bhagavatam, which is about Krishna. We are attracted to Bhagavad Gita, which is about Krishna. We are attracted to chanting. We are attracted to prasad. We are attracted to the temples. We are attracted to the deity of Krishna, their dressing and everything related to Krishna. But we don't feel much attraction to, for example, Hindi movies. या फिर अगर कहीं और जाना है, किसी पार्क में जाना है, वहां पे खेल कूद करना है. Yeah. So the attraction, yes, it is not that we are 100% attracted towards Krishna and 0% attracted towards material things. Because it is a journey and the progress is gradual, we can compare ourselves with what we were 5 years or 10 years before, and then realize that we have progressed to a certain extent, that our attraction to the material world has reduced compared to what it was 5 or 10 years back, and our attraction to Krishna has increased. And this we can understand, it is probably it is because of the mercy that comes from him. We don't really understand this presence or existence of his mercy, but only when we compare our progress we can understand that it is purely because of the mercy of the Guru and Krishna that these things are happening in our life. So Kunti Devi, whatever she has spoken is according to her basically summarization of the glories of Krishna. But the glories of Krishna are not limited to whatever Kunti Devi has spoken. In fact, in the same 10th chapter, in the next verse itself, Krishna says, what is the need for such a detailed description? What is need is there for this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support the entire universe. Even at the start of these vibhutis, when he starts reciting in the verse number 19, he tells Arjun, Hantate kathishami divyayatma vibhutaya pradhanyatah kuru shreshta nastyanto vistarasya me. There is no end to the limits. There is no end to the extent of my opulences. My opulence is limitless. Meaning, if we were to go on speaking, the okay, Uddhav Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna. So there is no limit to his extent. Okay, so there is one small lila about Lord Ananta. So the Lord Ananta, who is a form of Balram himself, has thousands of mouths, and he has been given one task of glorifying the Lord. So for unlimited amount of time, he has been glorifying the Lord without any repetition, and he has still not completed. So now, in such a scenario, we can understand that if Kunti Devi were to talk about all of these glories, the Bhagavatam would never have ended. So she has just summarized it here to enunciate the fragment of his glories. Another point is about the Lord being called as Uttama Shloka. So this phrase of choice words, okay, comes quite a few times in Bhagavatam. So there is one specific chapter about the personified Vedas reciting prayers to the Lord. Okay, so they are also saying ki complete Vedas, okay, the complete knowledge, when personified, you can imagine that he is saying, that person is saying that I am not sufficiently capable to glorify the Lord. Even with the best of the choicest of the words that I can use, the Lord cannot be glorified sufficiently. So the Lord's glories are so unlimited that the personification of knowledge is also unable to glorify sufficiently. Hare Krishna. So we'll move on to the next verse. Any question in this verse, please let me know, or we can move on. Okay. Tam badhamit mityupamantriya pravishya gaja sahvayam striyascha swapuram yasyan premna radnya nivaritah.
Thus, accepting the prayers of Srimati Kunti Devi, the Lord subsequently informed other ladies of his departure by entering the palace of Hastinapur. But upon preparing to leave, he was stopped by King Yudhishthir, who implored him lovingly. No one could make Lord Krishna stay at Hastinapur when he decided to start for Dwarka. But the simple request of King Yudhishthir that the Lord remain there for a few days more was immediately effective. This signifies that the power of King Yudhishthir was loving affection, which the Lord could not deny. The Almighty God is thus compared only by loving service and nothing else. He is fully dependent in all his dealings, but he voluntarily accepts obligations by the loving affection of his pure devotees.
Right. So we've seen this previously as well, and we will see this subsequently in the 13th chapter also of the same canto about Yudhishthir also. And Yudhishthir has been described in various other chapters also, especially in the 10th canto and 11th canto. So the relationship between Yudhishthir and Krishna has been spoken about in Mahabharata in various places. So it was such that despite, of course, the Lord is Lord finally, but Yudhishthir was elder in terms of age to the Lord. But despite that, Yudhishthir always used to fold hands in front of Krishna. He never basically took the position of an elderly person and behave accordingly to him. Whereas if you see Kunti Maharani in the Kunti Stuti, you would have seen that she started describing the body of the Lord from the navel and above. She did not go to the lower part of the body. And this is, Prabhupada writes in the purport that this is to avoid any embarrassment to Krishna, because she understands that he is the Supreme Lord. So for her, there is absolutely no problem in terms of bowing down in front of him or describing the feet of the Lord. but the Lord would have felt a bit embarrassed because he is performing the role of a junior in terms of age to Kunti Mata. So that's why Kunti Mata avoided this. But Yudhishthir, okay, the age difference wasn't much, but Yudhishthir went a step forward to always fold the hands to in front of the Lord, irrespective of the age, but very well knowing his position. And this point has been illustrated in quite a few places. I recently read in Chaitanya Charitamrut that it is mentioned. Let me just read that to all of you. It's beautiful. Okay, so in the Chaitanya Charitamrut, Adi Leela, chapter 4, verses 17 to 22. So Lord Krishna speaks. Okay, he's saying all the universe is filled with the conception of my majesty, but the love which is weakened by that sense of majesty does not satisfy me. Very important to understand this. If one regards me as the Supreme Lord and himself as the subordinate, I do not become subservient to his love, nor can it control me. Okay, we will discuss on this one. In whatever transcendental melo my devotee worships me, I reciprocate with him. That is my natural behavior. In whatever way my devotee surrender to me, unto me, I reward him accordingly. Everyone follows my path in all respects. This is 4.11 Bhagavad Gita. If one cherishes pure loving devotion to me, thinking of me as his son, his friend, or his beloved, regarding himself as great, and considering me his equal, I become subordinate to him. Okay, what he is highlighting here is when the position of Krishna is considered to be the supreme position, and because of which we bow down to Krishna, then that bowing down is not out of pure love. It is out of a respect for his position. If today, for just for an argument's sake, if today some great Rishi Muni comes to us and he proves that Bhagavad Gita is all nonsense, okay, we will lose the respect for Krishna, right? And immediately we will stop worshipping him, we will stop loving him also. But that means what? Our love for Krishna was not because he is the Lord or we love him. It is because the love is for that position, because of his supremacy. And that is what Krishna highlights here, that I like that love which comes to me out of sheer love and not a respect for my position. Okay. So that is why the love of Arjun is more respected because of the I want the charging cable. The love of Arjun is more respected because that is at the level of equal. Then the love of Yashoda Mata is even more respected because that is even considering to be higher. Meaning Yashoda Mata always considered her to be the mother of Krishna, and accordingly she loved Krishna. So we can see in Damodar Leela that she takes a stick in her hand and runs after Krishna to beat him also. And Krishna likes that. Had he not liked it, he could have just stood at one place and broken her stick also, and maybe, given a big punishment as well to her. But he doesn't do that. He takes the slippers of Nanda Maharaj on his head and brings it to him for him to wear. Imagine the Supreme Lord, absolutely asamurdhva. There is nobody equal to or superior to him. The Supreme Lord carries the slippers of somebody, of course his own father, and he brings it up to the father. Okay, Radharani, Srimati Radharani's feet, he takes it on in his hand, on his shoulders, and he removes the thorn as well from the feet. Imagine the Supreme Lord is touching somebody's feet. Okay, it's Srimati Radharani, she is not an ordinary person, but we're talking about the Supreme Lord here. So the Lord wants such kind of love, where out of love you are, commanding the Lord. And the Lord says that I am always and ever obliged and ever waiting for such a love, so that I am so eager to fulfill the orders of my devotee. And that is why you will see in Srimad Bhagavatam, you will never have interactions which is on a trade kind of basis, that you give me this, then I will give you that. That kind of love you will not find in whole of Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, one question.
Yeah, Prabhu.
The intention of Kunti Maharani was also, as if it appears, to feel that Krishna should stay back. But Lord accepted only Yudhishthira's request, and because the verse says that the moment after that he immediately decided to leave.
Correct. But she never explicitly requested him to stay back. She only said that what will happen if he leaves. She only said that you are leaving now, and this is what will happen, this is what you do, this is what you are, and all that. But Yudhishthir made an explicit request to stop him, to make him wait for a few more days. And he accepted it immediately.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at 46 verse. I intend to finish the chapter today, which I think is until verse 52 or 53.
52.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Prabhu. Vyasadyair Ishware Hadnyai Krishnenadbhuta Karmana Prabodhito Apiti Hasair Nabudhyata Shucharpitaha. Anybody translation and purport? Sorry, Subramanian Prabhu, you have raised a hand.
Yeah, sorry, Sachin Prabhu. I just had a small question. Probably I didn't get it. I thought of asking it. It says the pious king Yudhishthira was mortified because of the mass massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra. Okay. So this piece is after the battle of Kurukshetra. And then it says Duryodhana was there on the throne and doing well in the administration. So I couldn't get these both, because after the battle, definitely Duryodhana was not there. So I didn't understand the.
So where is it mentioned that Duryodhana was there in the throne?
On the purport, actually. Sorry, if I'm. See, it says the pious king Yudhishthira was mortified because of the mass massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra, which means this piece of information is after the battle of Kurukshetra. And then to continue, it says Duryodhana was there on the throne and he was doing well in the administration, which means it should. So I didn't get the timelines probably, or I don't know.
Many, it is this statement is as of before the war.
Then, if it is before the war, then the massacre of human beings shouldn't have been there in the battle of Kurukshetra, right? Because
so let's read this. So what it's saying is, it is talking about the mental state of Yudhishthir. And prior to that war, what has happened? So Duryodhana was there, he was doing well, and in one sense there was no need of fighting. This is from the no need of fighting. This statement is coming before the fight could actually happen. But on the principle of justice, Yudhishthir was to replace him, because it was Yudhishthir's kingdom. So this statement is prior to the war happening, this and this statement. But this statement is related to the meaning after the war, the effect of the war.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
You want to read the translation and the purport?
Oh, sure. I'll do that. Translation. Yudhishthira, who was much aggrieved, could not be convinced despite instructions by great sages headed by Vyasa and the Lord Krishna himself, the performer of superhuman feats, and despite all historical evidence. Purport. The pious king Yudhishthira was mortified because of the mass massacre of human beings in the battle of Kurukshetra, especially on his account. Duryodhana was there on the throne and he was doing well in the administration. And in one sense, there was no need for fighting. But on the principle of justice, Yudhishthira was to replace him. The whole clique of politics and centered around this point, and all the kings and residents of the whole world became involved in this fight between the rival brothers. Lord Krishna was also there on the side of King Yudhishthira. It is said that in the Mahabharata, Adi Parva 2.25, that 640 million people were killed in the 18 days of the Battle of Kurukshetra, and some hundreds and thousands were missing. Practically, this was the greatest battle in the world within 5,000 years. This mass killing simply to enthrone Maharaja Yudhishthira was too mortifying. So he tried to be convinced with evidences from histories by great sages like Vyasa and the Lord himself that the fight was just because the cause was just. But Maharaja Yudhishthira would not be satisfied. Even though he was instructed by the greatest personalities of the time, Krishna is designated herein as the performer of superhuman actions. But in this particular instance, neither he nor Vyasa could convince King Yudhishthira. Does it mean that he failed to be a superhuman actor? No, certainly not. The interpretation is that the Lord as Ishvara, or the super soul in the hearts of both King Yudhishthira and Vyasa, performed still more superhuman action because of the Lord desired it. As super soul of King Yudhishthira, he did not allow the king to be convinced by the words of Vyasa and others, including himself, because he desired that the king hear instructions from the dying Bhishma Deva, who was another great devotee of the Lord. The Lord wanted that at the last stage of his material existence, the great warrior Bhishma Deva see him personally and see his beloved grandchildren. King Yudhishthira, etc., now seated on the throne and thus pass away very peacefully. Bhishma Deva was not at all satisfied to fight against the Pandavas, who were his beloved fatherless grandchildren. But the Kshatriyas are also very stern people, and therefore he was obliged to take the side of Duryodhana, because he was maintained at the expense of Duryodhana. Besides this, the Lord also desired that King Yudhishthira be pacified with the words of Bhishma Deva, so that the world would see that Bhishma Deva excelled in all knowledge, including the Lord himself.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. So we see, firstly, what we can appreciate here is the purport written by Srila Prabhupada. Yeah. Imagine if you were to try and understand the purpose behind this verse without the purport, it would be practically impossible. So this question actually has been raised by quite a few people, that if Krishna were so great, why couldn't he convince Yudhishthir that he had to go to Bhishma Dev despite his painful condition? Yudhishthir was asking questions to him, and Bhishma Dev was answering. Krishna could have also given the answers. Yeah. So this particular stuff actually gives us the actual answer. So we always see that the Lord performs many actions, or generates many results out of a single action. So one of this is meaning Yudhishthir was thinking at the level of, again, the body itself, that he is thinking that the only objective of the war is to enthrone him, put him on the throne, but which is not the case. If enthroning him was the only objective, Krishna could have played the game in such a manner that the throne could have never been taken away from him. He would not have let that dice match happen at all. And Krishna, with all his knowledge and all his control over the events that happened in Mahabharata, he would have ensured that Duryodhana is completely convinced that Yudhishthir has fulfilled the conditions of Vanvas. He could have done all that. But had he done it, it would have become impossible for Duryodhana to agree to the demand of returning Hastinapur to him. Then what would have happened? The war would not have happened. And Yudhishthir is such a peace-loving person that he would have forgotten anything and everything. And he would have just been happy with getting his kingdom. leaving aside no scope for any revenge, any punishment to be given to Duryodhan and the Kauravas, then what would have happened? So, what would people take as an example, as a standard, that we should not retaliate? Anything and everything done by any perpetrator should be acceptable and tolerated. Yeah. So, what would have happened? The teaching that Mr. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi has given to all the Indians, especially Hindus, to tolerate anything and everything nonsense committed by people, and show your left cheek also when the right cheek has already been beaten. This would have been the standard across the whole of the world, which was not supposed to be. So the Lord did not initiate the proceedings of the war as soon as the dice match happened, or as soon as the first reply from Hastinapur came that we will not return the kingdom. The Lord himself took a lot of efforts to ensure that the message is communicated to them, and they take that decision that no, despite all your efforts and despite fulfilling the conditions, we are not going to return your kingdom. That is the only time when the war did not have any alternative. War was mandatory. And the war was not mandatory because of the enthroning of Yudhishthir, but to set a standard to the whole world that punishments will be given for the incorrect actions that are performed. And in order to establish the principles of religion over the world, it was necessary to enthrone the King Yudhishthir. And the principles of religion demand punishment to be given for perpetrators, especially when they do not stop their incorrect actions or do not even ask for forgiveness, and there is no scope of these actions, when there is complete scope of these actions to be continued. So, in such a situation, the Lord knew what is going to happen, and in the interest of the example for the rest of the world, the war was required. So, Yudhishthir is now thinking that the war happened only for me to get the throne, which is actually not the case, and because of which he is not able to forgive himself. And the pain in his heart is so much that he is unable to get convinced, despite the great sages like Vyas convincing him, giving him good answers, despite the Lord speaking to him. Now the question arises, does Lord Krishna not have sufficient knowledge and the power to convince a person like Yudhishthir, who is a devotee himself? So the answer Prabhupada gives so beautifully here, that the super soul within the heart of the Vyas Rishi was purposely not giving convincing statements to Yudhishthir. And the super soul within the heart of Yudhishthir was purposely not accepting to be convinced. That is the reason Krishna also gave statements, and the super soul purposely did not accept to be convinced. Why? Because until then, Bhishma was known only for his prowess in fighting in the war. Not many people knew about Bhishma's ability in terms of knowledge. So it is not unnecessary that Bhishma is called as one of the Mahajans. So we will see in the 6th canto when Yamaraj is giving a kind of lecture to the Yamadut. Okay, this is the story of Ajamil. So we will go to it when we reach there. So during that, Yamadut they want to take back Ajamil to the hellish kingdom, but the Vishnudut stopped them from doing that. And they come back empty-handed, and then they say that until now we were thinking you as the Lord, but we realize that there is somebody even higher than you. What is it? Please guide us. So Yamraj talks a lot about the Lord over there and the glories of the holy name he speaks. And finally he says that there are 12 people who are Mahajans, and these 12 people know the complete details of the Lord because they are pure devotees of the Lord. And within that, he mentions Bhishma as one of them. Now, you can see Bhishma's knowledge and devotion level is so pure and so high that he was not glorified to on that perspective. He was continuously being glorified only for his Bhishma Vrat, the vow that he had taken, or the glorification was for his ability to fight in the war, which is just at a material level. But his actual knowledge or the devotion to the Lord, which is much more important, was not known to anybody. So Krishna wanted to achieve that. Krishna wanted to convince Yudhishthir, and all of these he constructed in the that particular incident of Yudhishthir asking questions and Krishna not giving perfect answers and directing him to Bhishmadev. So this was completely achieved by Krishna via this particular incident. Okay, shall we move on? Hare Krishna. Okay, Krishna. So 47. Ah Raja Dharma Sutas Chintayan Surudam Vadham Prakrutenatmana Vipraha Sneha Moha Vasham Gatah. Translation and purport.
Translation: King Yudhishthira, son of Dharma, overwhelmed by the death of his friends, was aggrieved just like a common materialistic man. O sages, thus deluded by affection, he began to speak. Purport: King Yudhishthira thought he was not expected to become aggrieved like a common man, become deluded by worldly affection by the will of the Lord, just as Arjuna was apparently deluded. A man who sees knows well that the living entity is neither the body nor the mind, but is transcendental to the material conception of life. The common man thinks of violence and non-violence in terms of the body, but that is kind of delusion. Everyone is duty bound according to one's occupational duties. A Kshatriya is bound to fight for the right cause, regardless of the opposite party. In such discharge of duty, one should not be disturbed by the annihilation of the material body, which is only an external dress of the living soul. All this was perfectly known to Maharaja Yudhishthira, but by the will of the Lord, he became just like a common man because there was another great idea behind this delusion. The king would be instructed by Bhishma as Arjuna was instructed by the Lord himself.
Jai. Thank you. Do you remember a verse that is there in the second chapter? Prahasanni va Bharata is a term used over there. What does this mean? Sanjay, this is a verse spoken by Sanjay. Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies. Sorry, this is the verse number 10. O descendant of Bharat, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna. So from the next verse, Bhagavad Gita theoretically starts. Now you can see the word smiling here. Anybody can you explain why this word smiling was mentioned here? Yeah, and why was Krishna smiling? You can imagine the situation that you have a friend, and that friend is in lot of difficulty, lot of material difficulties, health difficulty, financial, job, and family, whatever you name, and that difficulty is there. He's coming to you, he's crying, he's continuously crying, and tears and flowing, and you smile in front of him. What will that friend think? What will happen? So that is what Krishna did over there. So Arjun is shedding tears and he's saying, my body is trembling, my body is burning, my Gandhi is sleeping, I don't want to fight. Nachaitat vidmah kataranna baryo. I do not understand what is right for me, what is wrong for me. I don't understand what to do, what not to do. Please guide me. I surrender you as my master. I'm your disciple. Please tell me, please tell me. But Krishna is smiling over there. Why do you think that has been done?
Maybe Krishna is thinking that Arjun forgot his state. Basically, he's thinking as a bodily person, materialistic person.
Okay.
That's the reason. Because
Prabhu, I think the Krishna was happy that the main purpose of is all this creation has started working.
His creation or something.
Means he just wanted to speak Bhagavad Gita for a
Correct.
common man. So he wanted such things should happen so that he gets an opportunity to start this.
Correct. Yeah, that's right. So, the example that we can take here is about a doctor and a patient relationship. Say, for example, you can look at it in this way. Today, Google is the biggest doctor according to many patients, right? So anytime they feel certain things happen, they go to Google, do a research, and then they realize, okay, this is the reason, and this is the medicine. So people go to doctor, and then they doubt their diagnosis, and they even doubt the medicines given, and then they themselves recommend, doctor मुझे तो ये हो गया है, and doctor मुझे आप ये medicine दे देना, हो जाएगा, काम खत्म हो जाएगा. So now doctor is not required in such a case, right? So imagine a situation, a patient doing that, and first time when he's going, he's telling the doctor, this is what has happened, these are the symptoms, this is the medicine, ये medicine दे दो, मैं ठीक हो जाऊंगा. डॉक्टर से ठीक है, ले लो मेडिसिन, मेरी क्या जरूरत है आपको. तो then after that person comes back 1 week later again saying that डॉक्टर ठीक नहीं हो गया है, मुझे लगता है कि फर्स्ट लेवल डायग्नोसिस वाज नॉट करेक्ट, बट आई हैव डन मोर रिसर्च एंड आई हैव रियलाइज्ड कि दिस इज नॉट द प्रॉब्लम बट समथिंग एल्स इज द प्रॉब्लम, एंड द फर्स्ट मेडिसिन इज नॉट राइट, सेकंड मेडिसिन इज द राइट वन, तो प्लीज आप ये सेकंड मेडिसिन दे दो मेरे को, मैं ठीक हो जाऊंगा. तो डॉक्टर बोलता है ठीक है, ले लो सेकंड मेडिसिन, जाओ करके. And then he goes back and again comes back in the third week, and then the condition has become even much worse than the first or second week. And then इसकी अकल ठिकाने पे आती है, and then बोलते डॉक्टर sorry my diagnosis was wrong, please go ahead with your treatment, I'm sorry to interrupt you in your treatment. Then the doctor, what he does, he smiles. Why he smiles? Not because he is happy with the suffering that the patient is undergoing. He is smiling because now the gates are open, allowing the doctor to do or to treat the patient in the manner which he is supposed to be treated, in the right manner. Here also, Krishna is smiling because it gives an opportunity to him to speak Bhagavad Gita, to give the right treatment. So the smiling is not because Krishna is happy to see Arjun in a painful situation. The smile is because Krishna is now getting an opportunity to speak Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, this particular situation is also not far different. Arjun was put in a delusion. Arjun was put in that situation purposely by Krishna. Yeah. Krishna purpose Bhishma Drona Pramuktaha. Krishna brought the chariot purposely in front of Bhishma and Drona when Arjun asked him to take it in this middle of both the armies. He could have brought him in front of Duryodhan. तब उसको he would not have felt any compassion. He would have felt anger, and वो 18 दिन के बजाय 10 दिन में और खत्म कर देता वो. But he didn't do that. He brought him to in front of Duryodhan, Bhishma and Drona purposely giving rise to that compassion. And here also he did the same thing. He could have actually convinced King Yudhishthir and ensured that the matter is over, but he didn't want to convince Yudhishthir because he wanted Bhishma's knowledge and ability and devotion to be known to the complete world, to known to everybody. And Bhishma, he wanted Bhishma to be glorified. He did not want his glorification because out of the 6 opulences that he possesses, one is renunciation. Renunciation meaning no attachment to anything. And he is not attached to glorification. So this is what he did, and this is what he achieved by deluding Yudhishthir to make him think, to make him feel aggrieved by the killing of so many people. when he felt ki bhai, why did I kill? Why did so many people have to be killed only to get a throne for me? That was not required. So then that thought became such strong in his mind that usko bahut dukh hone laga, and he consulted various people. Many people gave answers. Obviously, he would have consulted Vidur also. And finally, Lord Krishna ensures that he takes him to Bhishmadev. Okay. So we move on. 48. I believe there is no question. If you have, please let me know. Aho me pashyata jnanam rudirudham duratmanah पारक्यस्यैव देहस्य बह्व्यो मे क्षौहिणी arhata.
King Yudhishthir said, "O my lord, I am the most sinful man. Just see my heart, which is full of ignorance. Full of this body, which is ultimately meant for others, has killed many phalanxes of men. A solid phalanx of 21,870 chariots, 21,870 elephants, 109,650 infantry, and 65,600 cavalry is called an Akshwani. Ashwan,
Okay.
Akshwani. And many Akshwanis were killed in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Maharaj Yudhishthir, as the most pious king of the world, takes for himself the responsibility for killing such a huge number of living beings because the battle was fought to reinstate him on the throne. His body is, after all, meant for others. While there is life in the body, it is meant for the service of others, and when it is dead, it is meant for to be eaten by dogs and jackals or maggots. He is sorry because for such a temporary body, such a huge massacre was committed.
So does anybody remember how many Akshauhinis fought in the war? How many Akshauhinis were there with Pandav and how many with Kaurav? Anybody remembers?
11 and 7, Prabhuji.
Yes, 11 with
11 with Kauravas, 7 with Pandavas.
Pandavas. Exactly. So here is the description of a Akshauhini. So many chariots, elephants, infantry, and cavalry. So the point here to be understood is uh, all these will anyway get their own benefit after they die. When he would have got. So which Krishna says in the second chapter again in the 37th verse. So here quite a few things are getting related with the second chapter. Let's read that. Hato va prapsyasi swargam jitva va bhokshase mahim. This is that verse. What Krishna is saying, O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up with determination and fight. So this, whatever he received as a kind of a reward, was actually applicable to all the warriors in the battlefield. Krishna says that whoever dies in the battlefield will get to go to heavenly planets and enjoy over there. So what Yudhishthir is thinking is again from a bodily perspective that these people whose body has been killed, their body meaning kind of a wasted only for getting a throne for such a person, and he is calling that as ignorance. So meaning he is saying that the body is supposed to be used for others, not for ourselves. And whereas I have made them lose their body for others, but I have utilized my body for myself, my own benefit. And this is what is actually, troubling him a lot. Okay. बालद्विज सुहृन्मित्र पितृभ्रातृर्गुरु द्रुहः न मे स्यान्निरयान् मोक्षो Jhapi Varsha Yutayutaihi. Anybody? Hare Krishna.
Jai Prabhupada. I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, friends, parents, preceptors, and brothers. Though I live million of years, I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins. But whenever there is a war, there is certainly a massacre of many innocent living beings, such as boys, brahmanas, and women, whose killing is considered to be greatest of sins. They are all innocent creatures, and in all circumstances, killing of them is forbidden in the scriptures. Maharaja Yudhishthira was aware of these mass killings. Similarly, there were friends, parents, and preceptors also on both sides, and all of them were killed. It was simply horrible for him to think of such killing, and therefore he was thinking of residing in hell for millions and billions of years.
Yeah, thank you. So if you see, there is a parallel between what Yudhishthir is thinking here and what Arjuna was thinking previously in the first chapter. Does anyone remember what Arjun said with respect to uh, this statement? I will not be relieved from the hell that awaits me for all these sins.
He said by doing Kula, it's Kula Dharma, Pura Vansha Nasham, so he will not be relieved of this.
Yeah, but there is a specific statement that he spoke from hell perspective. Do you remember? Naraket niyatam vaso bhavatityanu. He is saying, I will reside eternally in hell. Hmm? They always dwell in hell eternally. So he is saying that people who are actually carrying out actions which involve killing of people, especially the innocent ones, or where Arjun was talking from the perspective of destruction of dynasty and the traditions. He is talking now from the innocent people perspective that I have killed, meaning he as a king is responsible, even if he personally, individually may not have killed them, still the people involved in the war were fighting on the orders of King Yudhishthir, and that means that the actions performed by these fighters, the responsibility lies of those actions, the responsibility lies with King Yudhishthir. So he is saying, I, meaning I as a king, individually or as the one who ordered the other fighters, I have killed many boys, brahmanas, well-wishers, and all that. And now he is saying that these people who are mostly not involved in fighting have been killed, and the killing of such people is a sinful activity, and I carry that responsibility on my shoulders of their killing. So now he is saying, firstly, he is not saying that he will remain on earth for millions of years. He is saying, I will go to hell. That is point number one. Within that hell, that punishment also will be, obviously the hell is never a kind of a place of enjoyment. The hell is only a place of misery. Now he is saying that in that place of misery I will remain there for millions of years. I will not be relieved for all these sins. So he is now projecting the magnitude of the sins that has been committed by him individually or by him as a king who has given the orders. He is saying that only hell is my destination, and within that also there will be no relief even if I be there for millions of years. So this is the quantification of his sinful activity. He is doing it here now. So you can imagine such a sinless person having such a sense of responsibility now will be relieved by the instructions that Bhishma gives. So you can imagine the potency of the instructions that Bhishma has given. Not fully it is covered in Srimad Bhagavatam, but to meaning it is fully covered in Mahabharata. but in Bhagavatam, only at a summary level it has been spoken. नैनो राज्ञ प्रजा भर्तुः धर्म युद्धे वधोद्विषाम् इति मे न तु बोधाय कल्पते शासनं वचः.
There is no sin for a king who kills for the right cause, who is engaged in maintaining his citizens. But this injection is not applicable to me. Maharaj Yudhishthir thought that although he was not actually involved in the administration of the kingdom, which was being carried on well by Duryodhan without harm to the citizens, he caused the killing of so many living beings only for his personal gain of the kingdom from the hands of Duryodhan. The killing was committed not in the course of administration, but for the sake of self uh, gratification, and as such, he thought himself responsible for all the sins.
So this is the pious nature of Yudhishthir, because of which he is thinking on these lines. So just imagine, although hypothetical, but just imagine a situation where the Pandavas would have lost and Kauravas would have won the war. The killing of people would have happened in both the cases. Okay, and maybe a similar quantity of people. But Duryodhan, but Duryodhan would not have felt remorse in absolutely any manner. And how do we come to that conclusion? So when in the first chapter, when Duryodhan approaches Dronacharya to talk about both the armies, the arrangement of both the armies, he is elated. He is very happy to see that the fighting, the war is about to start. He gets a lot of pleasure when Bhishma blows the conch shell, because that means the war has started. Whereas the same situation is being seen by Arjun also. But because Arjun is a devotee and very pure at heart and very soft at heart, he did not like the situation of him needing to kill the other people. Yeah. So you can see the stark contrast in the mentality of both the people. And a similar mentality is now being displayed by Yudhishthir also. So Yudhishthir also, he is saying that he is taking this upon himself to say that all that has been done in terms of war was only because I wanted the kingdom. So that's why innocent people laid down their lives for me. And this complete responsibility lies on me. So he is saying because it was a selfish motive, according to him, that the war was fought. He considers that to be an incorrect cause of fighting the war. So that's why he's saying that a king who kills someone for the right cause does not undergo punishment. And we know who Yudhishthir is. Yeah? Yudhishthir is the personification of Dharma himself. Yeah, so he is Dharmaraj. Dharma. Any idea who is Dharmaraj? Who knows who is Dharmaraj?
It is Vidur.
He is the son of Yama, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he is and so Yamraj is actually Dharmaraj, and he is the son of that person. So we understand that the level of knowledge Yudhishthir possesses about Dharma is actually unparalleled. Such a person, to reach to a conclusion that killing by him or via him in this war is sinful. So we can imagine, can somebody other than the Lord or somebody who has superior knowledge, can anyone else convince him? तो आप अभी ये जस्ट कॉन्टेक्स्ट में लाते हैं. लेट्स से आइंस्टाइन को लेके आते हैं. आइंस्टाइन इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी अ वेरी इंटेलिजेंट पर्सन, राइट? If Einstein says something, would anyone in the current world or even the world at those times would have the ability to prove that he is wrong? Right? It's so difficult to find such a person, right? So we can imagine that the son of Dharma is stating that his actions are wrong. Now the people who are going to convince him that you are not wrong obviously have to have higher and better level of knowledge, right? So the glorification of Bhishma Dev should be considered from this perspective, that if the person who is putting up a question is not an ordinary person. Yeah. So last two verses of this chapter are there. Let's take it. स्त्रीणां मद्धत बन्धूनां द्रोहो योऽसा विहोत्तिथः कर्मभिर्गृहमेधियैर्नाहं कल्पो व्यपोहितुम्. Who's reading? Hare Krishna.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
I have killed many friends of women and have thus caused enmity to such an extent that it is not possible to undo it by material welfare work. Purport. The Gramendis are those whose only business is to perform welfare work for the sake of material prosperity. Such material prosperity is sometimes hampered by sinful activities. For the materialist, is sure to commit sins, even unintentionally. In the course of discharging material duties, to get relief from such sinful reactions, the Vedas prescribe several kinds of sacrifices. It is said in the Vedas that by performing Aswamedha Yajna, horse sacrifice, one who can get relief from even Brahma Atya, killing of Brahmana. Yudhishthira Maharaj performed this Aswamedha Yajna, but he thinks that even by performing such yajnas, it is not possible to get relief from the great sins committed. In war, either the husband or the brother or even the father or sons go to fight. And when they are killed, a fresh enmity is created. And thus, a chain of actions and reactions increases, which is not possible to be counteracted even by thousands of Ashwamedha yajnas. The way of work, karma, is like that. It creates one action and another reaction simultaneously and thus increases the chain of material activities, binding the performer in material bondage. In the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 and 28, the remedy is suggested that such actions and reactions of the path of work can be checked only when work is done on behalf of the Supreme Lord. The battle of Kurukshetra was actually fought by the will of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, as it is evident from his version, and only by his will was Yudhishthira placed on the throne of Hastinapura. Therefore, factually, no sin whatsoever touched the Pandavas, who were only the order carriers of the Lord. For others who declare war out of personal interest, the whole responsibility lies on them.
Jai, thank you. So just a week or two back in one of the other classes, there was a question about if people who fight in the war go to Swarga for enjoyment, will the people who fight in war that is happening currently in between Russia and Ukraine, will they also go to heaven and enjoy? So the obvious answer is no, it will not be, because these wars are not happening on the basis of dharma, they are happening based on personal interests. And whereas this was happening from the perspective of dharma and ordered by the Lord. Now, what we understand from this verse is Yudhishthir has reached to a conclusion because he understands the principles of dharma very well. He understands sins automatically get committed by people, sometimes unwillingly, and when they are done, okay, there are measures in the Vedic sacrifices. Via Vedic sacrifices, there are measures to counter them. So one such measure is the Ashwamedha Yajna. Now, Ashwamedha Yajna is able to counter even the killing of a Brahman also. So, can somebody tell me why the Brahman has been mentioned here? What do you think? Meaning, we can understand that Ashwamedha Yajna is one of a big kind of yajna. Okay, and that's why a big yajna will counter a big sin, right? And here the example is given of a killing of a Brahman. So why killing of a Brahman is a big sin? What do you think?
Because Brahmana is the most sattvic person, and he is the person who gives a knowledge to others to follow a right path.
And what is the benefit of that?
Mm,
Basically, killing a Brahman would basically destroy the entire society, because they actually impart knowledge to the society and take into the process of Sattvic and upwards. So killing them would destroy the entire society.
Yes, exactly, perfect. But usme bhi meaning what gets impacted? Society destroy hoga, yeah, there will be a good impact. What will be the impact? That which is what makes a Brahman so very special.
because he controls a person's thinking, he gives the right direction to everyone. If they are not there,
Huh.
so there's no one will be there who can control and give right things to the people.
Probably he's considered as the messenger of God.
Yeah, so more than the messenger of the God, see, we need to understand messenger of God, obviously, yes, that's right. But we need to understand that the purpose of human life is to ensure that we get out of the cycle of birth and death, minimum. Yeah. Now, Brahmanas are the ones who possess this knowledge, and they have a duty of providing this knowledge, distributing this knowledge to the society. Now you imagine a body without a head altogether. Okay, the body will not function properly. The body will not be able to do what it's supposed to. It will not achieve the objective. Similarly, a society without Brahmanas, or for that matter, a society without intellectual people who possess the knowledge about Shastra, about the human life, about the purpose of human life, who are supposed to guide the people to achieve the objective of coming out of the cycle of birth and death, if they themselves are not there, the destruction of is not of just one body, that of a Brahman. The destruction happens to the entire society, because that all the people who are going to benefit from the existence of Brahman by obtaining knowledge from them and performing their actions according to the knowledge imparted by Brahman, all this will stop. So the impact is felt not by one person but by the whole society. That is why the existence of intellectual people, the Brahmanas in this case, is very important. Imagine, imagine all the teachers in the world are killed, they die. What will happen? Who will teach us? All the books are burnt. What will happen? Yeah, so this is the extent of the impact that is caused to the society when Brahmanas are killed. That's why, considering the final objective of human life, which is impacted by the killing of Brahman, that's why the killing of Brahman is considered to be the biggest of the sin. So the sin is considered or given that status of big, small, medium based on the impact that it causes, which is one of the factors, not the only factor. So we need to gather from this verse is Yudhishthir Maharaj understands all this very well. So Yudhishthir Maharaj is conveying here that a yajna like Ashwamedh yajna will also not be sufficient, because I have killed many Brahmanas, many boys, many women, many such people. So that's why there is no alternative than to remain in hell for a very long time. Okay. Let's move on. Any question? I think this is the last verse, right? Yeah, this is the last verse. Any question around this one, or shall we finish this verse? No. Okay, fine. Yatha pankena pankambha suraya va surakrutam bhuta hatyam tathaivaikam na yajnam na yajnirmar marshtum arhati.
As it is not possible to filter muddy water through mud or purify a wine stained pot with wine, it is not possible to counteract the killing of men by sacrificing animals. Ashwamedh Yag or Gomedh Yag, sacrifices in which a horse or a bull is sacrificed, were not, of course, for the purpose of killing the animals. Lord Chaitanya said that such animals sacrificed on the altar of Yagna were rejuvenated and a new life was given to them. It was just to prove the efficacy of the hymns of the Vedas. By recitation of the hymns of the Vedas in the proper way, certainly the performer gets relief from the reactions of sin. But in case of such sacrifices, improperly done under inexpert management, surely one has to become responsible for animal sacrifice. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no possibility of performing the yagna perfectly for want of expert Brahmins who are able to conduct such yagna. Maharaj Yudhishthir therefore gives a hint of performing sacrifices in the age of Kali. In the Kali Yuga, the only sacrifice recommended is the performance of Hari Nam Yagna, inaugurated by Lord Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But one should not indulge in animal killing and counteract it by performing a Hari Nam Yagna. Those who are the devotees of the Lord never kill an animal for self interest. And as the Lord ordered Arjuna, they do not refrain from performing the duty of a Kshatriya. The whole purpose, therefore, is served when everything is done for the will of the Lord. This is possible only for the devotees.
So in the Kali Yuga, there are certain activities which are forbidden. So I don't remember the verse completely, but cow sacrifice, horse sacrifice, then uh, then generating progeny from the wife of a brother. So if you remember when Vichitra Virya was had lost his life, then Vyas Rishi was called to generate progeny out of Ambika, Ambalika, and the maid servant. And that is how Pandu, Dhritarashtra, and Vidur were born. So now this was acceptable at that point of time because the bodily urges were sufficiently controlled at that time. But here at this particular time, when people do not have any understanding even about the soul as well, okay, everything revolves around the body, such activities are forbidden. Not only this, even other sacrifices are forbidden. Now, why Ashwamedh Yajna or Gomedha Yajna or Rajasuya Yajna and these kind of yajnas are forbidden? That is for two reasons. One is, firstly, you need sufficiently capable brahmanas to perform these yajnas. Second is all the material that is required to perform such yajnas, even they have to be available. So now we are reading Ramayana since around last 1.5 to 2 years, and we've reached the second volume now of the first canto. So there, sorry, there's a chat message. Okay, Prabhu, thank you. So the different aspects that are considered while conducting the various yajnas are mentioned in detail. And that is when we realize that today, in today's world, it is impossible. And a slight mistake in conducting this yajna not only fails the yajna, but it in fact can cause a negative reaction also. So imagine a situation wherein you do not have capable brahmanas, when you do not have the proper samagri available, when the mentality of the person performing the yajna or the meaning the owner of the yajna for whom this is performed, when that mentality is also not right, when the place uh, in which it is performed, even that is not as pure as it should be, when the date and time are also not perfect, imagine the probability of the success of the yajna. It will be almost zero. And in such a scenario, when there is a tendency to commit many mistakes, the probability of, let alone positive, but the probability of negative reactions is 100%, which is the reason why yajnas, big large sacrifices, are forbidden in Kali Yuga. So that does it mean that yajna should not be performed? Now, Krishna in chapter 10 in Vibhuti Yoga, he mentions Yajnanam Japa Yajñosmi. In the chapter 10, I think 25th verse it is there. Yeah. Of the sacrifices, I am the chanting of the holy names, Japa. So he is saying that the various kind of sacrifices that are available, the best sacrifice is not this Yashvamedha or Gomed Yajna or Rajasu Yajna or any kind of Yajna. The best Yajna is the best sacrifice is chanting the holy name of the Lord, and which is precisely what has been prescribed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, especially for people like us in the Kali Yuga. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has mentioned Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, as the only medicine for the problems in Kali Yuga. And now it is not so very difficult to understand that when we chant, it is basically invoking the Lord personally via his name, and that is the best form of performing the sacrifice. And that is the reason why Yudhishthir Maharaj is also highlighting that when you do a sacrifice, you are sacrificing animal. So sacrificing an animal as a countermeasure to meaning countermeasure to killing of human beings is not right. So that's why he is giving the example of filtering muddy water. So what is the objective of filtering muddy water? So muddy water, which is mixed of mud and water, you want to remove the mud and you want to take the filtered clean water. So if you try to filter the muddy water through mud again, now that water will again have additional mud also. Or purifying a pot which has been stained by wine, you are cleaning it with a wine. So how is that going to help? So similarly, he is saying that if I am responsible for the killing of these men, and if I sacrifice animals to counter the killing of the men, how different it is. So if this is not right, which means none of the Ashwamedha, Gomedha or Yajsuya or any kind of Yajna is right, then there is no countermeasure available to the killing that I have committed, which means there is no way out than for me to suffer in the hellish kingdom. So he has reached to this conclusion, and in the next chapter we will see how the Lord tries to pacify him and how he takes him to Bhishmadev and how Bhishmadev convinces him. So this way we end the 8th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam of the first canto. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Or we can end the chapter now? Or we can end the class? Nothing?
No.
No questions, Prabhu.
Okay. So see you in the next week. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.